President Trump still says he wants other countries to help open the Strait of Hormuz. Most other countries, at least publicly, not jumping up and down to help. Question is, why? With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enten. So what's a possible reason why these other countries aren't lining up just yet publicly to help with President Trump in Iran?
It's really simple, Mr. Berman. It's really simple. The people in those countries hate the U.S. military action in Iran. What are we talking about here? Okay, net approval rating, U.S. military action in Iran. In Canada, way underwater, minus 27 points. You think that's low? Thank you, Mr. Berman. You think that's low? Take a look here in Japan. Negative 73 points. My goodness gracious, way down there. How about in the U.K.? We're talking about 34 points underwater. Key U.S. allies, the people in those countries, absolutely despise the U.S. military action in Iran. No wonder the leaders in those countries are, let's just say, a little apprehensive about helping out the U.S.
So compare this to the environment in 2003, and I'm picking that point because that was the beginning of the U.S. intervention war in Iraq. How did people in these countries feel at the beginning of that war compared to now?
Okay, so you see these numbers are quite low. They weren't always this low when it came to U.S. military action in the Middle East, because take a look at this situation. Okay, shift in net approval rating, U.S. military action in Iran now versus in Iraq in 2003. In Canada, way down. We're talking down, get this, 27 points. How about in Japan? Down, way down there, down 45 points. How about in the UK? And of course, there was UK involvement in that particular war. Look at that, down 48 points. So what we're seeing is a massive shift when it comes to how the people, our allies, people in those countries, are viewing the U.S. military action in the Middle East. Far less popular this time around. No wonder the leaders in those countries want pretty much absolutely nothing to do with this conflict, because they know there are big electoral consequences if they do, and not good electoral consequences.
What's happening overall with views of America abroad?
Yeah, okay, so you see these numbers, you see these shifts down in terms of how our allies or folks in those countries view U.S. military action in the Middle East. You see how unpopular it is this time around. Canada, Japan, the UK. And this is just part of a larger picture, Mr. Berman. A larger picture. Favorable view of the U.S. in 2025 versus 2024, of course. Donald Trump being the president in 2025, Joe Biden being the president of the United States in 2024. Look at this. Favorable view of the U.S. down 79% of 24 countries residents asked. The bottom line is this. The folks overseas are far less likely to view the U.S. favorably, and those chickens, they're coming home to roost in this situation, as there's very little support abroad for the U.S. military action in Iran.
And they have to worry about politics at home, these leaders do. Harry, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We defend all these countries, and then do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO to defend other countries. And I always said, but if it ever comes time to defend us, they're not going to be there. Many of them would not be there. And we're going to have to start thinking more wisely in this country.
Ashley, as the show was starting, we were talking about the coalition of the willing era from the Bush era versus whatever this is now, the coalition of the vaguely unwilling. What did you see in how the president was talking about allies now?
Well, first of all, I think the coalition of the willing was a different time, just because remember, America was attacked first. So there was a lot of people that were coming up and surrounding and helping us during that time. But I also think what's going to happen to NATO after this, because at least as long as President Trump's there, he's going to get very angry in regards to American dollars going towards NATO. Here's what I think is happening in Europe. First of all, they don't have that many ships to give. I mean, a lot of them do not have ones that are ready to go, especially in places like England and France. But also, they are giving a ton of money and have a very unpopular, populist message that's happening with their support of Ukraine right now. I mean, obviously, that's something you've seen for the last few years in the United States of don't give any more money to Ukraine. That has been starting over the last year. So I think meaning the leaders of Europe, are really fighting their battles back home in regards to their people do not want to get involved in a war that was not
Maybe
started
that
by
is
them.
what we're seeing in the reflection of some of these country responses. We did a roundup. I'm going to start with Estonia. Quote, it's a bit rich. Australia, we won't be sending a ship to the Strait of Hormuz. Germany, it is not NATO's war. Diplomacy needs to prevail. That from Italy. Can you talk about the way they have responded, especially since the perception was due to the leverage with tariffs, Trump had a lot of control and leverage?
Well, a lot of that has gone away, first and foremost. But the biggest part is, I mean, you don't ask for help after the fact. I mean, the biggest difference between the coalition of the willing is that, yes, there was an attack, obviously, but President Bush and the Bush administration built this coalition and really for more than a year. Now, this is something that the Trump administration did with Israel's help. And then after the fact, now we're 3 weeks on. is suddenly asking for help. And then
Not just 3 weeks on. Can I show you this Donald Trump Truth Social post from March 7th? You probably remember this. It was a reply to the UK. He said the UK, our once great ally, maybe the greatest of them all, finally giving serious thought to sending 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East, right? This was weeks ago. Here's what we're pointing out. Prime Minister Starmer, we don't need them any longer. We don't need people that join wars after we've already won. Here we are weeks later. Sounds like we haven't won if he's now making another round of requests.
It makes it seem like there really wasn't a long-term plan here. I mean, the reality is, again, asking for the allies' help after saying things like that makes it very, very difficult. So, look, the bottom line is the White House and the president have said there's going to be a list of allies who are helping. That will be a pretty short list. I'm not sure who would be on it. But to Ashley's point, there aren't just a ton of extra ships sitting around. It's more than just an air power.
Not that I'm like, who can help?
Right.
Yeah. Well, but he's asking, right? So obviously there's a need. And that
There's definitely a need.
Yeah, we're trying to understand.
Does the Board of Peace have a Navy? Because I saw him with the Board of Peace not that long ago with all of these nations sitting at the building of
Over
peace.
Gaza, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so those were supposedly our friends. Do any of them have a Navy? I know you may be a Navy expert. I am not. But I will tell you that this war is not popular. And what's happening right now is not popular. And I think that's why you feel the tension at the White House tightening, because the American people are fed up with paying $5 a gallon for diesel.
Brett, you wrote this thoughtful piece on what the options are now for the United States, that it finds itself in this war, which you're saying you think is probably around the halfway point. Can you give us some sense of what those options are?
Well, a lot of focus there on a naval coalition to come into the Strait of Hormuz. And I've been involved in building coalitions across my career. Coalitions take time to build. Every single country, even our closest allies, they have legal requirements, political requirements, and once you get over those hurdles, you then have to go military to military, rules of engagement. So I would say in the best case, even if we had countries lining up, we're weeks away from having a naval coalition in the Strait of Hormuz. I think that work has to get underway, but there's really no quick fix here. So what I would anticipate over the coming weeks and weeks is the military campaign, the CENTCOM military campaign, which is proceeding methodically day after day, Sarah, kind of taking apart Iran's defense industrial base, their ability to project power. That will continue to go on as this diplomacy goes on in the Straits of Hormuz. But it's going to take time to build a coalition, even in the best case. And as we've seen in the past couple of days, a lot of our allies, because of the treatment by the Trump administration, have been very reluctant. And they have their own politics in their capitals. I suspect we will see the UK. Prime Minister of Japan is here on Thursday. I think that'll be an important meeting. We might see some contributions from Japan. A lot's going on behind the scenes, but there's no quick fix here to the Strait of Hormuz issue.